What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Devontae. You already know we're back on again. And we back on part 2, y'all, bro. Let's get on dating app killers, bro. And like I said, I'm ready to get started. But if y'all do, go fucking subscribe to my motherfucking channel. I got about 10, man. I'm trying to get up there, man. So help me out. And also like that shit, bro. Don't be stunned. Don't be out here. Help a brother out. You heard me? You feel me? Let's get started, G.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we also print that and that?
I didn't finish the last one because it was too long and I had to do something that day. So I'm ready for this one.
Notified police and a murder investigation was opened. Initially, police had no suspects, but a break in the case came by way of Haley Bustos. According to police, in the weeks following the crime, Bustos was involved in a separate burglary. Witness testimony led to Haley being identified as a suspect, and she was subsequently arrested and linked to the Adam Hilaire murder case. After a bit of questioning, detectives then learned of her 3 accomplices, and the whole group was now made to face justice in a court of law. In court, prosecutors alleged that Haley Bustos participated in what's known as a honey trap, essentially using the Plenty of Fish app as a means to get close to Adam Hillary, then scouting out his home with the intention to later rob him with the help of Warner
Snitch. She's a snitch. She told.
Ellington and Gray. As a matter of fact, in court, Haley Bustos would testify that a friend had told her to download these dating apps because they could be used to lure in men and exploit them for money. And with that testimony in mind, it does kind of seem like we're dealing with a honey trap situation here. The first of this Plenty of Fish posse to be convicted was Andre Warner, the man who murdered Adam execution style. In December of 2021, Andre Warner was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to serve life in prison, with the jury recommending the death penalty. Josh Ellington and Gary Gray are—
Damn, them niggas, the death penalty. Hey, they was wild and they want them niggas dead. That's crazy right there.
Both facing first-degree murder charges. Their cases are still ongoing. Haley Bustos, the seemingly innocent young woman who reached out to Adam on Plenty of Fish back in 2016, was recently found guilty and accepted a plea deal. Snitching on her associates kept her—
Rat ass motherfucker. See? She a rat. How the fuck they told you to do this and that? You listen, the nigga get killed, you snitch. Come on now, that's crazy, bro. That's why, bro, don't be trusting these females out here, bro. She will tell. She gonna tell on the nigga.
From getting life in prison. In early 2022, Haley was sentenced to serve 25 years for her involvement in the criminal robbery conspiracy that led to Adam Hilaire's death.
Haley Bustos was charged with conspiracy to commit armed robbery, and theft. She has been sentenced to 25 years in prison.
While it's reassuring to see that the despicable individuals involved are facing serious time for their crimes, this entire situation is heartbreaking to say the least. This Plenty of Fish murder conspiracy is a case that shows how easy it is for malicious criminals to take advantage of individuals using romantic partnership as bait. What first appeared as an innocent young woman on Plenty of Fish turned out to be a duplicitous con artist with murderous associates. Their despicable deeds and petty greed left an innocent man dead and his 5-year-old daughter fatherless.
It's pointless, you know, to have that in your heart, to want to be.
Damn, man. It's fucked up how he killed him, execution style. I ain't give a fuck. But it's just, that's how fucked up the world is. But shit, nigga, that's why, bro, I'm gonna keep that chopper on me. Fuck y'all talking about. I'm not ready to kill me off of some shit like that. I'm a do. Fuck alright.
Violent to kill someone, that's, I don't get it. I don't understand how people can even want to be like that.
Women, young men, type of men that you say that you find attractive.
What the fuck? What kind of app is this?
All now dead, Stephen.
Our final story is without a doubt the most disturbing example of a dating app being used to facilitate criminal activity. It's a harrowing tale that showcases what happens when a serial killer uses Grindr and gay escort sites to lure in victims.
I was able to earn my master's degree in 6 months at WGU while working full-time. The competency-based learning made all the difference in the world because
the central figure of this gruesome tale is a British man living in London named Stephen Port. Born in February of 1975, Stephen has been described by many throughout his life as a loner. Folks that knew him personally say he was bullied growing up and always had trouble fitting in. When Stephen became an adult, the man was said to have a immature and childlike personality, with a neighbor reporting that they saw him playing with children's toys as a grown man on numerous occasions. In his early 20s, Stephen would come out as gay, further ostracizing him from society. He then moved out after getting a steady job as a chef for a catering company. From that point on, Stephen would live alone in an apartment located in the Barking suburb of London, a location that approximately 8 years later would become the headquarters for a sexual deviant and serial killer. Let's flash forward a little bit. It's now 2014 and Stephen Port is 39 years old. As the man had grown older, he apparently became sex obsessed and compulsively used dating apps and escort services like Grindr, Sleepy Boy, FitLads, and Gaydar to obtain sexual encounters with young gay men in their early 20s. Around this time, Stephen maintained an athletic physique in an effort to attract these men and sported a blonde toupee to make himself appear younger than he actually was. In Stephen's dating app profiles, he would completely fabricate information about himself to make him appear more interesting or exotic than he actually was. From styling himself as an Oxford University graduate to a special needs teacher to a Royal Navy soldier, Stephen made up many falsities in an effort to hook up with young men. While what he was doing on these apps was indeed very questionable, it wasn't illegal or anything. But what we soon find is that Stephen Port had criminal fantasies that he was willing to act on. On June 19th of 2014, Stephen Port makes a 999 emergency call. Remaining anonymous, he explains to dispatchers that while driving, he had witnessed a drunk young man collapse in the street and have a seizure near the East Block apartments in Barking. Sometime after Stephen's call, emergency services arrive at the complex specified by the caller and find the body of 23-year-old fashion student and escort Anthony Walgate.
What area? Barking. It looks like he's collapsed or had a seizure.
Hey, bro, this nigga wildin', bro. He's the British of Jeffrey Dahmer. But only it is he ain't.
Or something. Just always just drunk. But yeah.
Authorities would pronounce the young man dead shortly after arriving. A bottle of the party drug GHB was found on his person, and the cause of death was ruled as an overdose. Police didn't think there was any foul play here. They felt that this man was abusing the GHB drug, had an overdose, and died from it. Simple as that. They didn't think anything was up with this. However, what authorities didn't realize at the time was that Anthony Walgate was an escort that Stephen Port had hired from an escort site called SleepyBoys.com. Stephen then lured the young man into his apartment with the promise of 800 pounds for his services, only to spike his drink with a lethal amount of GHB, sexually assault his unconscious body, and murder him by way of drug overdose. Stephen then moved Anthony's body to the street and allegedly planted the drug on his person to trick police. He then fed emergency dispatch the bogus story about him randomly passing this collapsing man on the street, and nobody was the wiser. While police didn't initially find the death of Anthony Walgate suspicious, a later tip provided by a friend of Walgate would actually draw Stephen Port into question here. This friend explained that he knew Anthony Walgate and knew that Walgate was going to an apartment owned by a man named Stephen Port the evening of his death, as Walgate had discussed this meetup with the friend before heading over. Police then pieced things together and realized that Stephen Port was actually the individual that made that emergency services call, which they considered quite suspicious. On June 26th, Stephen Port was arrested and charged with perverting the course of justice, accusing him of essentially lying to them about what had happened. He's then interrogated by detectives. They want the real story of what happened that night. So Stephen whips up a story that's extremely charitable to himself. Stephen would admit that he knew Anthony and did indeed have him over at his apartment the night of his death. But Stephen spins the narrative, claiming that he actually had left home at some point to go to work, leaving Walgate in his apartment apartment, only to then return from work early in the morning to find that Anthony Walgate had apparently taken GHB on his own accord.
Nigga, what kind of lie is that? That's crazy, bruh. What kind of lie is that, bruh? This nigga holler so, yeah, what do, he did it, what do. You know damn well that's a lie. Stop capping. This nigga lying to himself, bro. That's funny, bro.
And overdosed in the process. He frames this in a way that suggests the only reason he lied about the circumstances of him knowing Anthony Walgate was because he was afraid that police would implicate him for a murder that he didn't commit. And well, police would believe Stephen's story, considering the death of Anthony Walgate simply to be a freak accident of sorts. Stephen would be released on bail and would later have to go to a low-stakes hearing for perverting the course of justice. We'll get to that hearing later. Stephen had successfully gotten away with a brutal essay and murder, and once he realized how easy it was for him to get away with these heinous crimes, he continued committing them, delving deeper and deeper into criminality. He would continue using apps and hookup services to commit more essay and murders over the next year. His next victim would be Gabriel Cavari. Stephen had reportedly connected with Gabriel Cavari using the Grindr dating app, and the two would talk online for some time, with Gabriel eventually moving into Stephen's apartment in August of 2014. However, this move would prove to be a lethal mistake, as just 5 days after moving into Stephen Port's apartment, Gabriel would become his next victim, with Stephen drugging the young man with GHB, committing SA, and murdering him. This time, Stephen would place his victim's body at a graveyard approximately 500 meters away from his apartment. Gabriel Cavari's body was discovered sometime later by a woman walking her dog. Police considered the death an overdose and made no arrests in relation to the circumstance. On September 18th, Stephen made contact with a 21-year-old chef named Daniel Whitworth on a Grindr-like dating site. Stephen used the same devious tactics he had used on his previous victims with Daniel, and just 2 days after the men had connected, Daniel Whitworth was found dead, his body discovered by the same dog walker in the same spot in the same
What? So let me get this straight, and this what kills me. Why? Because if you notice, bro, as a serial killer, let's say for instance, I kill somebody. If I was a serial killer and I was killing people, bro, why serial killers' mistake always happen by either dumping, kill them like the next day, and just leaving, just being lazy with the evidence. That's what I'm trying to get at. Why does that always happen? Because this dude literally killed the other person, left him in the same body over there, and then killed the other person and then put the same body over there. That's lazy. That's killed me, bro. And think they were to get away with it? Like, come on now.
His body discovered by the same dog walker in the same spot in the same cemetery. Now, if you already thought Stephen Port was a piece of shit, get a load of what he did with Daniel Whitworth.
Unlock your full creative potential. Go to fxhome.com now and download the only video editing software you'll ever need. With a simple interface and all.
In an effort to keep law enforcement off of his trail, Stephen authored a fake suicide note, planting it on Daniel's person before dumping his body in the cemetery. This fake note claimed that Daniel's reason for supposedly killing himself was because he had killed Gabriel Cavari, and he couldn't live with the grief. Remarkably, this disgusting manipulation worked on police and his death wasn't ruled a homicide. Stephen Port had gotten away with his third disturbing dating app murder. But in March of 2015, Stephen would have to take a bit of a hiatus from his crime spree, as he was made to appear in court for that old perverting the course of justice charge that he got back in 2014. In court, Stephen pled guilty to perverting the course of justice in the case of Anthony Walgate's death. He was sentenced to serve 3 months in jail and was released in June several months later. It's frustrating to think that this murderer was literally inside the court building, but nobody knew what the hell was going on, so he's just getting punished for some bullshit charge related to lying to the cops. He was right under their noses the whole time. So after getting out of jail, months later in September of